People are into a fantasy world when they believe that the Federal Bureau of Investigation finds out what it finds out through the method of scientific investigation, that the agents can just go out and they can plot a course and they can follow a man everywhere and they take notes and such. That's not the name of the game. The name of the game is find someone that is close to that man or can get close to that man or that group or whatever and have him do the legwork.
So in other words, there obviously then would have to be more informants than agents.
Definitely.
What would the ratio be? 10 to 1?
I think every special agent usually has anywhere from 6 to 7 what I would call prime informants or agent provocateurs.
Hey, bro, you better go. I'm gone. Get on the field. Go on, get on. Hey. Officer, stop. Hey, don't hit me. Hey, you not hit me. Fuck all that shit, man. For real.
Umbrella. She's up. Whole nother level of shit you can't even understand. What is good, my people? We are live back again with another episode of The Forecast. Now, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over, expecting a different result. And instead of repeating the same things over and over, we need to start learning from history. Now, I don't know how many times it's going to take us getting burned to learn that white women are the most dangerous group in America. They are the backbone of white supremacy. And as brothers, at some point we're going to have to realize that America considers all sex between black men and white women rape. And the blood of our ancestors alone should be enough. What happened to Emmett Till should have been the last straw. So many people have been killed and we still have the same conversation. In Kansas in 1900, a black man named Fred Alexander, who by the way was a veteran who had just came back from the Spanish-American War, but a white woman named Eva Roth accused him of rape. And despite there being no evidence, they arrested him anyway. And just because this one white woman accused him of rape, they also accused him of killing and raping another white woman. Now, that white woman, Pearl Forbes, had been killed in a robbery gone bad. And there was no evidence that she had been raped at all, let alone having any evidence whatsoever that this brother Fred Alexander did it. But without any evidence, they still charged him with both crimes. They even said with the woman that was killed that she was strangled with the purposes of being raped. And so they arrested this man, Fred Alexander, and charged him with everything. The sheriff at the time, Sheriff Everhardy, removed him from a prison where he was safe to a local jail where a lynch mob can get to him. And then before he can even get a trial or anything, a lynch mob of 5,000 people pulled him out of the jail, tied him up, covered him in kerosene, and then set him on fire. He tried to tell them they were killing the wrong person. And right to his last breath, he was saying he was innocent. But they didn't care. There was no evidence he committed a crime. But because this brother was sweating when they questioned him, they said that was a sign he was guilty. And now 118, 119 years later, we still have our young brothers getting caught up on the same thing. In Kansas, the very same state, a young brother, Albert Wilson, was convicted and sentenced to 12 years for raping a white girl he never even had sex with. So let's see how this young brother, Albert Wilson, could end up getting sentenced to 12 years for a crime there's no evidence he committed.
The case of Albert Wilson sounds like something out of an episode of Law & Order SUV. Wilson, a former University of Kansas student, attended a bar with a friend and met a girl who was visiting a family member who attended KU. The two were underage and under the influence when they left the bar to go back to Wilson's apartment. What happened next has changed both of their lives, leaving Wilson with a sentence of over 12 years in prison for rape, despite the notion that the two didn't have sex. Lawrence Journal World reports that Wilson was given the sentence on Wednesday, in addition to a lifetime of probation and a mandatory sex offender title for the events that transpired in September of 2016. Wilson, who was 20 at the time, met the then 17-year-old girl at popular college spot Jayhawk Cafe. While Wilson used a friend's ID to get into the bar, the young woman and her cousin who attended KU weren't carded. Both parties agreed that they met while heading to the dance floor and danced with one another. Wilson allegedly lifted up the girl's skirt and touched her while they kissed. Shortly after, Wilson invited the girl back to his place, which was walking distance from the bar. Neither party apparently asked about each other's age. The victim claimed Wilson took her back to his place where he raped her, but Wilson shared a different story with the jury. She didn't seem intoxicated at all, Wilson said, as he claimed the two kissed and engaged in other sex acts, but never had sexual intercourse. Kansas Bureau of Investigation scientists testified that Wilson's DNA was found on the girl's chest, where he said he kissed her, but no seminal fluid or DNA was found. Swabs were collected from the girl the day after the incident from a nurse at a local hospital. Photos of bruises were also taken on her inner thigh. During the trial, Wilson maintained his innocence and explained why he initially claimed he didn't remember what happened at his apartment. "I don't know how to explain this, but I come from a different background than you, ma'am," said Wilson, who's black, to Judge Sally Porkcorny, who's white. "I just felt like the police were against me at that point." Wilson's court-appointed attorney, Forrest Lowry, stated the former student wasn't the man he was painted to be in the trial. The now 23-year-old was a Wichita Southeast High School football player with no criminal record. He earned his associate degree from a community college before transferring to KU and had dreams of becoming a sports journalist. "It was a chance meeting. Obviously, my client misread what was going on," Lowry said in court. "If there was ever a case that deserved a departure of any kind, I think this is it." After a 6-hour deliberation, the all-white jury convicted Wilson of rape. Wilson was given the reported lowest end of what's called for by Kansas sentencing guidelines for rape. The case has gained attention, including supporters creating a website detailing some questionable aspects of the incident. Video surveillance showed the two engaging with one another throughout their encounter and that they were only at the apartment for 5 minutes before they headed back to the bar. Many have questioned why Wilson was given a lengthy sentence, but actual convicted rapists like Brock Turner were given lighter sentences.
Now, the mainstream media hasn't talked about this story at all. They are protecting this white woman. They haven't released her name. They haven't released her picture. But they have released this young brother Albert Wilson's picture all over the internet. Now, this brother Albert Wilson, who was 20 at the time, met this 17-year-old white girl at a bar. And in Kansas, the legal age of consent is 16. Now, this white girl claimed when they were dancing, he lifted her skirt up. I guess she's trying to say he was grabbing her by the pussy. And then she said he forced her to go back to his place. She claimed she was too drunk to know what she was doing. But there's surveillance video that contradicts her story. It showed them hugging up on each other, and she was just fine walking back to his apartment. Now, according to phone records, they were only in this apartment for 5 minutes. But she claimed she was drunk and she was saying no, and he raped her anyway. Now, this brother Albert Wilson said they did go back to his apartment, and they started kissing and doing other sexual stuff, but they never actually had sex. He said his friends started calling him and texting him, so he wanted to go back to the bar. And it was him who changed his mind. But this white girl said after he raped her and they were walking back to the bar, she was crying and he was teasing her about it. But Albert Walker said after he changed his mind and decided to go back to the bar, she looked angry, and that's probably why she's accusing him of rape now. Now, when this white girl got the rape kit the next day, it didn't show any signs that they ever had sex. All they found was saliva on her chest. This white girl mom testified that she had PTSD, and she was crying all the time. She didn't want to go to school, and when she did, she was hiding in the bathroom or throwing up in the bathroom. But a friend of Albert Wilson, who also knows her, said he still sees her out partying. And they didn't release this white girl name, her picture. She didn't get ID'd at the bar. She could be anybody. And you don't know which white women have this mentality. But it's far too many that do. And despite a lack of evidence, an all-white jury, including 9 white women, after 6 hours found him guilty of one charge and was a hung jury on the other charge. Then the judge, another white woman, Sally Porkney, sentenced this brother to 12 years, which they say is the low end of the sentencing guidelines. Now, she isn't obligated to go by the sentencing guidelines, especially if the punishment doesn't fit the crime, but she chose not to. Then 2 of the jurors came back later and said they were pressured into voting guilty, and said they didn't even feel like this brother raped her. And Albert Wilson's lawyer asked for a retrial based on that, but the judge said no. The prosecutor, another white woman, asked him why he told the cops he didn't remember what happened that night. He said because he comes from a different background and felt like the police were already against him because he was black. And a black man with a white woman has been a capital offense in America since day one. The prosecutor, Amy McGowan, said his behavior was very predatory and said he violated and changed this white girl's life. And even if Albert Wilson and his family don't agree with the verdict, it's still guilty and he's a rapist. Now, this same prosecutor, Amy McGowan, had cases removed from her because of a pattern of misconduct. But no matter what, in America, we're supposed to take the word of a white woman, especially when it comes to a black man. It doesn't matter what the white woman says or does, let's just take her word to be safe. And this kind of culture creates white girls like Gemma Bill.
Lesbian fantasist invented 15 rapes and sexual assaults, which saw man jailed to get sympathy from girlfriends, court hears. A fantasist who invented rape and sexual assault allegations against 15 men to get attention from her girlfriend has been jailed for 10 years. Gemma Beale, 25, claims she'd been raped by 9 men and seriously sexually assaulted by 6 in 4 different encounters over the space of 3 years, causing one man to be wrongly jailed. A judge warned that her grotesque string of lies would increase the likelihood of guilty men going free and prevent real victims from reporting such crimes. Beale's first victim, Mahad Qasim, served 2 years and 9 months in jail while she received £11,000 in criminal injuries compensation following the alleged rape. The court heard that she went on to make a string of false allegations that took up 6,400 hours of police time and cost at least £250,000. Most lies began impulsively following drunken rows with girlfriends as she sought attention and to arouse jealousy. Judge Nicholas Lorraine Smith, sitting at London's Southwark Crown Court, told Beale she was a very, very convincing liar and enjoyed being seen as a victim. He added, "What is particularly chilling is the manner in which you persisted in making allegations which you knew were untrue, even to the extent of committing and repeating perjury. These false allegations of rape, false allegations which will inevitably be widely publicised, are likely to have the perverse impact of increasing the likelihood of guilty men going free." So in one case, Beale claimed she'd been groped in a pub by a man, and then that same man took part in a gang rape of her in a nearby car park. She actually cut herself with a hanging flower basket to make it look like she'd been attacked with barbed wire. In fact, CCTV footage showed she actually attacked the man in the pub and then walked home alone.
Now, as unbelievable as it sounds, this white girl, Gemma Bill, accused 15 random black men of raping her over 4 different accusations. And with no evidence, they just took her word for it. Some even went to jail. A Somali man ended up doing 2 years behind it. Another man did 7 years. And somebody else had to leave the country. And this white girl even went around bragging about the money she was compensated for it. In one case, she said a man attacked her in the bar and then cut herself with barbed wire. And it turns out she was the one who attacked the man and ended up walking home alone. Now, this white girl, Gemma Bill, says she lied to get attention from her friends and to make them jealous, which is sick in itself. Why would her friends be jealous of getting raped? And this white girl, or either her family, even had the nerve to create a YouTube channel asking for justice for Gemma. Meanwhile, the people really out here raping white women are only getting slaps on the wrist, just like the white boy John Enoch.
IU student accused of raping 2 women won't spend any time behind bars. John Enoch's sentence is drawing outrage on social media, with many comparing it to the Brock Turner Stanford case. Call 6 Investigates' Kara Kinney has been digging into why that supposedly lenient sentence was handed down, and she joins us now with some answers. Kara.
Well, Todd, we've been digging through court documents all day long and talking to attorneys on both sides of the case. One reason for the probation sentence: Johnny Knox was not convicted of rape or sexual assault. He was only convicted of misdemeanor battery. John Enox was initially charged with raping 2 separate women, one in 2013 and another in 2015. But Monroe County prosecutors dropped the rape charges and agreed to a plea with Enox because of evidence problems, including witnesses who were drunk and video evidence that didn't match the rape allegations. We talked with an attorney representing one of Enox's victims who says she was raped at the Delta Tau Delta fraternity house. Enox only admitted to touching Jane Doe in a way that caused injury, but not rape. Jane Doe's attorney has filed a civil Title IX lawsuit against IU and Delta Tau Delta, arguing they are fostering an environment for rape.
I mean, enough is enough. It's just, it's out of control. And unfortunately, the only way we see that we're going to get change and protect other girls is to file a civil lawsuit.
And prosecutors told us this turn of events was frustrating for us as prosecutors due to the fact that there were 2 complaints against the defendant. That fact is the reason we continued to pursue accountability on his part, which led to this plea agreement. Prosecutors also point out that John Enox pled guilty to felony battery, but for some reason the court entered it as a misdemeanor. We're working to get in touch with the judge on the case to find out why that happened.
Now this white boy who raped 2 different white women on 2 different occasions got his charges reduced from felony rape charges, which they eventually dropped, to a misdemeanor battery after a plea deal. He even admitted to touching her in a way to cause physical injury. But this white boy only spent 1 day in jail for raping 2 people and only got 1 year of probation. And I don't think he even has to sign up as a registered sex offender. All he has to do is pay $183 in court costs. We'll get more time for a dime bag of weed than they get for rape. But when it comes to black men, white women can make up a random black man and we'll all be in danger. We all fit this vague description. And we need to stop going out of the way, putting ourselves in even more danger. If you feel like you need to date them so bad, then destroy white supremacy first. But the last thing we need to be doing is making ourselves easy targets. At the end of the day, we are all we got. They stay on code no matter what, and it helps them maintain their power. When we learn to stay on code, then we'll be able to build our power. And we'll be able to put our children in a better position to be successful.
Put this little boy in some cuffs.
That is not okay. You cannot justify that. Don't say nothing to them, baby. Don't say nothing. Don't say anything. You're gonna be okay. Don't say anything. What's going on here, dude? You're gonna be okay.
Development in the case of a 10-year-old boy handcuffed by police during a robbery investigation. Video of the boy being taken by police this past Saturday has been widely circulated on social media. A short time ago, Attorney General Karl Racine released a statement saying that the little boy who was handcuffed is totally innocent of any alleged wrongdoing and was incorrectly identified as being involved in the incident. Officials also saying today that D.C. police acted in accordance with department policy.
This is cell phone video of the takedown. It was shot by another student here at Lincoln Park Academy.
You know, you're an officer. It's other way to restrain someone and handle a situation. You know, it's not like he's a grown man. He's a kid. He's 11 years old.
Nancy Lewis says her nephew is known to get into trouble and needs to know he has to respect people to get respect. But she believes the school resource officer should have chosen another way to control the situation Tuesday.
I understand why he did it, because maybe was out of control, but he could just have handled it better way.
St. Lucie County Sheriff Ken Mascara says his deputy used the proper technique. He says the student had been physically aggressive towards staff and other students throughout the day and was even on what's called a safety plan and has to be escorted everywhere he goes on campus.
When you initially look at it, optics look bad, but when you hear the totality of what occurred before this incident, the deputy did everything within reason to get this student under control.
The boy's aunt says the 11-year-old is an angry child. His mother was killed 9 years ago, and his father isn't around right now. She admits these aren't excuses, but says he needs to get help.
This kid, he just angry. You know, he's very angry, but overall, he's a good kid. He's smart. He's a good kid.
Newly obtained video gives us an inside look at a disturbing altercation at Marshall High School between Chicago police and a student. The incident happened January 29. CPD officers were asked to escort 16-year-old Denigma Howard out of the school following an altercation. Now, this video shows Howard starting to walk away from one of the officers when he grabs her and forces her towards the stairs. Now, video from the floor below shows Howard and the female officer entangled on the stairs as the male officer appears to be dragging Howard down the stairs by one of her legs. Then the officers and Howard are involved in a physical fight, which ends with Howard being tased. Howard's attorney says the video shows the officers lied about what happened, so he has amended their federal lawsuit against the city and the officers. CPS says they are deeply disturbed by the incident. Both COPA and the school district's inspector general are investigating.
It's a heartbreaking case of road rage. Surveillance cameras captured a white pickup hot on the trail of a sedan in which a family of 4 was heading home. When Dad pulled into his driveway, gunfire rang out. A bullet struck and killed 10-year-old Summer Brown, who was sleeping in the back seat.
She gasped because it woke her up, and she was trying to breathe, and she's just slumped over, and that's where I noticed the hole in her back, and I'm like, oh my God, I was just panicking and trying to stop the bleeding, and I could just see her gasping and gasping, and she just kind of just slumped over. And my daughter seen the whole thing because she was sitting right next to her, and she said, I knew she was gone because I see her eyes roll back in the back of her head. It was horrible. I don't wish this pain on anyone.
Police say it's a tragic case of road rage taken to the extreme.
He began following them a short distance from their home after what appears to be the victim's family had just cut him off in traffic.
That was my baby, man. That was my baby.
Phoenix police released this image of the truck. Note the specific damage in the rear. This sketch of the suspect was also released. It took just 1 day for an arrest to be made. 20-year-old Joshua Gonzalez. Police say he desperately tried to alter the look of the truck.
There was active efforts made to change the appearance of that vehicle.
Summer's parents are thankful for the speedy arrest, but devastated by the loss of their little girl, Summer.
You don't even think about stuff like that, and to know that that was going to be her last day on earth. I didn't even get to hug her and say, I love you.
Here is we received a complaint that there's criminal activity going on at your residence. Okay? So, what we have to do, anytime we get a complaint, we have to investigate and say that it's either unfounded or that something, confirm that information.
Okay.
So
what kind of criminal activity?
So, it could be that, drugs are being sold from this location, or that drugs are inside of the location, that type of thing. So what I want to do today, ma'am, is take a look inside.
No, you're not going to take a look inside. You got a search warrant?
No, ma'am, and that's what I want to speak to you about.
You're not going to take a look inside.
Okay.
That's not going to happen.
Okay. Well, let me explain to you kind of our process so you're aware of what is going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
We receive a complaint, we investigate it, okay? If, it's unfounded, we're out of your hair, you never have to deal with us ever again.
It is unfounded. There's no drugs in my house. I have 2 kids. I'm disabled. Right. My husband is at work right now.
Okay.
Nobody here has a criminal record. I have no criminal record. My husband has no criminal record. We just moved here from across the street. I've lived over there for 5 years. I just moved over here last month.
Sure.
So, no, you're not. If you give me a search warrant, you can come on in and look all around you.
And this is the thing.
It's not a problem.
Our process for when we have a search warrant is SWAT comes, busts down the door,
That's
goes
fine.
through things.
That's
I
fine.
don't want to have to do that.
Because nothing's. When y'all damage my stuff and y'all find nothing, you're going to pay me, so it's fine.
Ma'am, this is what I'm asking. Is there a better time we can come back, maybe when your husband is here?
No.
Because here's what's going to happen. If I can go in, make sure that you don't have any ninjas jumping out, bazookas laying around, nothing like that, I'm going to say,
I'm the only one over here on this little corner, and people want to call about my black ass being over here in this little corner,
and
minding
see,
my own business.
I agree.
It's because they're living in them trashy houses right there, and they're upset that we got the nicest house up here, so they want to call and lie on me. I agree with
it's
you,
garbage.
But
that seems really unfair. But I have to do my job, okay?
I didn't call you, so.
Okay. And part of that is I have to make sure nothing's going on. If I can say...
There's nothing going on. You smell anything going on around this motherfucker?
No, ma'am.
Does it look like anything's going on around here? Do you see my yard? Do you see my grass cut? I just bought a new car today. I just bought a new car today. Carvana just delivered my car today. That's probably where the call came from, because they're mad. People are mad and jealous. I mind my own business. I've been around this neighborhood for 5 years.
That's why I want to get out of your business.
I don't have a record. My husband doesn't have a record. We don't bother anybody. My kids go to school right up the street, and the teachers love them. They have no problems.
I'm sure they do.
It's bullshit.
Teacher at Shorewood Intermediate has been placed on leave because of concerns over a racist assignment. Students say they were asked to learn to play slave games. Fox 6's Hannah Jewell joins us live with reaction from the superintendent, from parents, and from students who were in that classroom.
Stephanie, this teacher is accused of separating students into groups based on their race, and that's not all.
I went to my mom and I was like, Mom, what are slave games?
Mahaley Stevens is in 7th grade at Shorewood Intermediate School. She and other students allege they were separated into groups based on their race and asked to research games from their cultures.
She told us to all go get in our groups, and then she told us that she would help us research slave games.
I've never heard of such thing. I never knew that slaves had opportunities to play games.
The incident happened April 1st. The superintendent says the school was made aware April 3rd. They sent a letter to parents saying a teacher shared an activity with students on the subject of games from around the world. That allegations were made that the teacher had suggested to African American students in the class that they research games that had been played by enslaved children, and that the administration immediately launched an internal investigation into the matter. Mahaley's mother says this sort of thing has happened before. Her older daughter had the same teacher last year.
This child was asked to be part of the color club.
The teacher has been put on indefinite leave.
How many more times do people have to feel uncomfortable until change happens?
We have to work together, have those courageous conversations, but provide support not only for the adults, but most importantly for our children, because it's not fair for our children to have to be comfortable with being uncomfortable.
We do know this teacher's identity, but we are not releasing it until we can confirm more with the school.
Why is you hitting on her like that? Why? Stop! Get out of here. Hold on, what? Get your ass out. You didn't need to call him that, though. Get out of here. Don't touch her. Just don't touch her. Look, lady, I got you on video doing that. You don't need to call him no. You are a. I don't care. I'm half fucking white. You sound black. And I'm not a nigger. You are. Why is you doing this? Why? You know what? Why? That pig came over here and she shoved me first. Why is you making racist though? Why? Fat pig came over and started it. Nobody don't deserve to get put their hands on each other. First. She did it first. How do you know what's going on? You came over here second. This fat pig put her hands on me. You using the N-word, calling people fat and everything. That is not right. I got you on video doing everything. I can say fat. I can say anything I want. Now get the out of my face. You have a serious problem. She put her hands on me first.
Let's just let them get in their car. If they're voting, let them
You have a serious problem calling people. No, you don't. He's that. Get the goddamn car. If I was you, I would be ashamed to be her husband. Hey, for real. I'm trying. I will be ashamed.
Hit me, please. Do something. nigga. Fuck the fuck guy. Slumlord, nigga. Come. Right here. What do you want to do? What do you want to do? Get that fuck ass out here! Okay. Get him, bitch! Damn right. My motherfucking face! Okay. Okay. I get you. I'm your witness. Every time I see you.
The incident caught on bus surveillance cameras happened on a Palm Tran bus on a Sunday afternoon, May 13th. It began as a dispute over the bus fare. There were only a handful of people on the bus, including a passenger who was very loud. The passenger, who's white, used insulting, racially offensive language, taunting the bus driver, who's black. According to the bus drivers union, this taunting went on for about 15 minutes, with the passenger standing in the aisle, calling the driver the N-word, spewing threatening and derogatory remarks at the driver. The driver warned the passenger to stop it.
One more time. I told you. Call me one more time.
Then the unruly passenger spit on the driver. According to the union, the bus driver couldn't take it anymore, stopped the bus, and then you can see on the video the Palm Tran driver repeatedly striking the passenger. He hit the passenger so hard he knocked the passenger unconscious, and he landed on the floor of the bus where he laid unconscious for several minutes.
Emotionally, the driver lost it and reacted in self-defense as well as reacted to being spit upon.
In a letter to the driver, Palm Tran called the driver's actions an egregious and abhorrent level of misconduct. He was fired, but the union feels the driver did not deserve it.
I think there's no place in our society for that use of language, and also I think anyone's going to have a reaction when they're spat upon, especially after being racially degraded.
Oh, what you gonna do with your fat flat shit? Y'all playing, man. Just like we like this shit. Yo, why every motherfucker got here trying to fight me and you call the police on me too? Fuck, you know this one. Call another motherfucker a nigga, bitch. Call another motherfucker a nigga. Fuck wrong with you. Fuck out. Fuck wrong.
Goddamn family standing in line. Nipsey Hussle's mom looks a lot like a male.
Oh, that's fucked up. Wow.
Dad looks a lot like a female, so go figure.
Wow.
I haven't seen any of them. Where are they showing his mom and dad? 11, they're showing highlights from the funeral. No, I'm on Channel 11 and they're not showing any fucking highlights. Now, what they should have done is after the funeral, they should have drove the motherfucker and put him in the ground before he starts stinking up the place.
Wow.
Stink when they're alive. I can only imagine what they smell like when they're dead.
Wow. Disrespectful motherfucker.
If they go in there and enforce anything, they'll turn on them like dogs.